Today we're going to go ahead and go over the quiz and grade it and make any corrections that you have on your test. Remember, you will be able to use the quiz itself on the test. So please make sure that you are making the best corrections on your paper. Make sure you have all the work of how to solve it. Remember that the test is going to be very similar to the quiz, but with just different answers. So we start with some diamond problems. As we know we're going to multiply the numbers to get the top and combine like terms, adding or a subtraction to get to the bottom. So this first one, I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to -80 and add to 2. So we're going to go ahead and have 1 times 80, which adds to 81 and subtracts to 79. 2 times 40, which is 42 and 38. We then go to our calculator and we find our other factors. 80 divided by 3 does not go in evenly. 80 divided by 4 is 20. So 4 times 20 is 24 and 16. Once again, we're looking for a 2. 80 divided by 5 is 16. So 5 times 16 is 21 or 11. 80 divided by 6 doesn't go in evenly. 80 divided by 7 doesn't go evenly. 80 divided by 8 is 10. So 8 times 10 adds to 18, subtracts to 2. So that's the one that we're looking for. So we have an 8 and a 10, and it needs to be a positive 2. So that's going to be a -8 and a 10. You're giving yourself 1 point for each of those. My next one is 12 and -7. So 1 times 12 is 13 and 11. 2 times 6 is 8 or 4. 3 times 4 is 7. So we have a 3 and a 4. However, they need to combine to be -7. So that's going to be a -3 and a -4. I'm completely wrong if you get the signs wrong, so make sure that it's a -3 and a -4, and two negatives multiply to be a positive. So 1 point for each of those. Now, the only way you can multiply to get a 0 is if one of those numbers is a 0, and we need it to add to 7, so 0 plus 7 is going to be 7. So 1 point, of course, for each of those as well. So our next one is -81 and a 0 down below. The only way that you can get a 0 when you're adding numbers is if they're opposites. So that's going to be a -9 and a +9. So for this problem, please write how many you got correct out of 8 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, our next one is we're multiplying the following to write the areas as a sum. So we're using the outside of a generic rectangle. So we have a 3x minus 1 and a 2x plus 5. We're going to multiply, 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 multiply. 2x times 3x is 6x squared. 2x times -1 is -2x. 3x times 5 is 15x. And 5 times -1 is -5. Now we're going to go ahead and combine our like terms, which are our x's, and our final answer is 6x squared plus 13x minus 5. So this is going to be worth 4 points. 1 for the 6x squared, 1 for the 13x, 1 for the -5, and 1 for having your work. Okay, our next one here is a 4x plus 1 squared. Now, whenever we have anything squared, it's the same number multiplied by itself. So 5 squared is 5 times 5. X squared is x times x. 4x plus 1 squared is 4x plus 1 times 4x plus 1. Now, whenever this happens, we know that this parabola has its vertex on the x-axis. And in this case, it would be at -1/4. 4x times 4x is 16x squared. 4x times 1 is 4x. 4x times 1 is 4x. And 1 times 1 is 1. So once again, we're going to combine our like terms, which are our plain x's. And we have 16x squared. 4x plus 4x is positive 8x plus 1. So once again, This one is as well worth 4 points. 1, 2, 3, and a 4th point for your work. So problem number 2 is out of 8 points as well. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and simplify the following using our rules of exponents. So we always go ahead and we take our number that is a fraction or a whole number, and we reduce if it's a fraction, and we, if it is a division, we simplify it. Now we have to deal with our variables. Now, the -2 tells us that the -2 needs to go to the other location, become positive. So that's going to become an x squared here, and it's gone from up top. So I have a single y up top and 2 down below. So they're going to battle. This one is going to cross out one of these. Now we just combine what's left. In our numerator, we just have a 1. On the bottom, we have a 4. We have 7 x's and 2 more x's. Base stays the same. We add the power, so we have 9 down below, and we have a single y remaining. So our answer is 1 over 4x to the 9th y. It's worth 2 points, 1 for the correct answer. You need all of it to be correct. You can't have anything wrong, and 1 for any work that you did. Okay, here we have everything to the -2nd power. So we're going to apply that first to every item inside. So we have 2 to the -2nd. A, base stays the same. We multiply our powers. -2 times -2 is +4. And our B, 4 times -2 is -8. Now, anything that is negative, we're going to move to the other location, which is the denominator. So 2 to the -2 becomes 2 squared in the denominator. Our a to the 4th is where it wants to be, so that's going to stay in the numerator. B to the -8th is going to become B to the 8th, and that's going to become positive in the denominator. So all we have left is to simplify 2 squared. So our final answer is a to the 4th over 4b to the 8th. Once again, 1 point for your final answer and 1 point for your work. This was laws of exponents. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 possible points on problem number 3. Now we're going to solve the system of equations. Once again, this is a line. We're seeing where they intersect. So we're going to have y equal to y. So our first y is x plus 7. And our second y is 3x plus 5. Now that we have y equals y, we're simply going to solve for our x. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides. That gives me 7 is equal to 2x plus 5. We're going to subtract 5 from both sides, and I get 2 is equal to 2x. Divide both sides by 2, and I get x is equal to 1. That's half of my answer. Remember, I'm seeing where they intersect. Now I'm going to take that one and plug it into either of the equations. I'll get the same answer regardless, and solve for y. Y is equal to 1 plus 7. Y is equal to 8. So my answer here is the ordered pair 1, 8. So you're going, this one's worth 3 points. You get 1 point for your x value of 1, 1 point for your 8 for your y value, and 1 point for your work. So number 4 is out of 3. Notice if I were to plug my 1 in this one, 3 times 1 is 3, 3 plus 5 is 8. So it didn't matter which one I plugged it into, I was going to get 8 either way. Okay, now this, of course, is an exponential function, and my exponential functions are y equals a times b to the x power, where a is my 0, which is also my y-intercept, and b is my multiplier. There's a number of ways that you can do this. I like to go ahead and make a table to sketch, or you can use what you know. So I know that 3 is my 0, so I would go ahead and plot a 3 on the axis. And so my 0 is 3, and then my multiplier is 2. So I'm simply going to multiply it by 2. So my first term, 3 times 2 is 6. My second term, 6 times 2 is 12. My third term, 12 times 2 is 24. So my 0 value is 3. My multiplier is 2. So next one, I'm going to have a 6 on there for my 1. And then it goes off the board. My 2 is going to be 12. And I always like to work backwards to find my -1. So I'm going to divide by 2. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. So in this direction, I'm going from 3 to 1.5, and I'm doing half of it each time. And so half of 1.5 would be 0.75. Now my last step is I need to make a smooth curve. And remember, because there's no plus or minus, it's not going to go past the asymptote. And I know my next one's going to be all the way up there at 24, so it's going to go really, really high. So for your points, you're going to get 1 point for knowing the 0 was 3. 1 point for knowing the multiplier is 2. 1 point for plotting your 0. And your next 2 points are for any other points on it. And your 4th point is your smooth curve that does not go below the x-axis. So this one is worth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. Okay, our next one here is also going to be worth 5. This one is a decay because our b is a number between 0 and 1. So my 0 is 10, my multiplier is 0.5. So I'm going to go ahead and I like my XY table. Like I said, I do tend to find a -1 as well. And then I have 0, 1, 2, 3. My 0 is 10, so I'm going to plot 10. And then I am multiplying that by 0.5 or halving it. So I have 5, 2.5, 1.75. Is that half of 2.5? No, it's 1.25. Okay, so I'm going to plot those. I have 1, 5. I have 2, 2.5. 3, 1.25. And it's going to continue getting closer and closer. Now, if I go backwards to that -1, it's going to be all the way up here at 20. So I know that it's going to get really steep really fast. So my 5th and final point is, once again, that smooth curve that does not go below the x-axis. That is its asymptote. So once again, 5 points. 1 for the 10, 1 for the 0.5 here, 1 for plotting the 10, the 4th point for any 2 other points, and the final point is for your curve with those arrows that does not go below the x-axis. So on this front page here, we have a total of how many possible points? 10 plus 7 plus 8 plus 8. We have a total of 33 points. Go ahead and add those up for your total on this first page. How many did you get out of those 33 possible points? Okay, let's go ahead and get to work on the problems on the back. So now we're going to go ahead and factor finding the roots. So I'm going to do generic rectangle diamond problems for these. So we have our A is 16, our B is 16, and our C is 4. We multiply A times C, 16 times 4, for that top number, and that is 64 up top, and our B goes on the bottom. So I know that 8 times 8 adds to 64. I multiplies to 64 and adds to 16. Then I'm going to go ahead and make my generic rectangle. My 16x squared goes in the bottom left from my original equation. My 4 goes in the upper right. And then I'm going to have my 8x in either side. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out either this direction here. I can go ahead and take my 8x this way, and 8x times 2x is going to get 6. To keep my 8x the same, it's going to be here, and then 2x times 4 is 4x. So I have for this first one 2x plus 1, and it could be a little different for yours, but your final roots are going to be the same, and that's going to be 8x plus 4. Now we're going to use the zero product property to set them equal to 0 and solve. So 2x plus 1 equals 0, so that equals -1, and x is equal to -1/2. You can write it as -1/2 or -0.5, same difference. This one we're going to set equal to 0. 8x is equal to -4. Divide both sides by 8, and we have another same answer, -1/2. So we have a single root, and that is at -1/2. This one is worth 1, 2, 3, 4 points. That is because you're going to get a point for your correct diamond, a point for the correct insides of your generic rectangle, a point for your product form, and a point for your final answer. So this one is worth 4 points. Okay, our next one here. Once again, we have an A of 1, a B of -5, and a C of -14. That gives us a -14 up top and a -5 down below. 2 times 7 is going to multiply to 14 to a -7. So I go to my generic rectangle. I have my x squared in my bottom left, my -14 upper right, and I have a 2x and a -7x. Now I'm going to go ahead and factor that. I have an x times x times -7, x times 2. So my product form is x minus 7 times x plus 2. I set them equal to 0 and solve, and I have a root of 7 and a root of -2. So 1 point for your diamond, 2nd point for here, 3rd point for your product form, and then your 4th and 5th point. So this one's worth 5 because we had 2 roots. Okay. Our last one here, we have an A of 100, a B of 0 because there is no x, and a C of -49. So 100 times -49 is -4900, and my B is 0. Okay, so I need to find a number that's going to be opposites to get here. Now, what that means for me is I know 4900 is a perfect square. So I'm simply going to find the square root of 4900, which is 70. So one of these is going to be a 70, and the other one's going to be a -70. So we've talked about this already in the chapter of what that 0 down below means. And we had a -81 on the front page that was similar. Okay, so we have our 100x squared and a -49 in the upper right, and we have a 70x and a -70x. So this way, I can go ahead and pull out 10x. It's going to be 10x this way as well. 10x times -7, and here I have a 10x plus +7. So my product form is 10x minus 7 times 10x plus 7. Okay, we're going to solve. This one's going to be 10x is equal to 7. Divide both sides by 10. This one's going to be 10x equals -7, and x is equal to -7/10. So you can either leave these as a decimal or fractions. So my first x is 7/10, which is 0.7, and my other x is -7/10. So this is where your vertex is in the middle, and we have opposites for our roots. So this one is worth 5 points as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this problem number 6 is out of 14 points, 4, 5, and 5. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and graph these. So we're going to do the same step that we did up here, only we're going to find the vertex as well. So my A is 1, my B is -3, and my C is -4. That gives me a -4, A times C, and a -3 down below. So we are going to go ahead and have 1 times 4. 2 times 2 doesn't work. It's a -3, so that's going to be a -4. We're now going to put that into our generic rectangle, and we have our x squared in the bottom left from our original equation, our -4 up top, and then we've broken our -3x into an x and a -4x. The x squared becomes x and x times -4, and x times 1. So my product form is x minus 4 times x plus 1. So we set those equal to 0 and solve. So one of my x's is 4, and my other x is -1. We're going to go ahead and plot those, our 4 and our -1. Now we need to find the middle of those two. And the way that you can do that is add them together, 4 plus -1 divided by 2. And that gives you 3 divided by 2, which is 1.5. That's going to be my x value of my vertex. Now I'm going to plug that into our original equation and solve. So I have, remember to use your parentheses, 1.5 squared and that gives me 2.25. And then we have our minus 3x, so minus 3 times 1.5, and that gives us minus 2.25, and then minus 4. So 2.5 minus 2.25 is 0. 0 minus 4 is negative 4. So my vertex is 1.5 negative 4. So 1.5 negative 4. Okay. We can also plot our bonus point as well. So let me double check on here, and we're going to bring up our Desmos and graph it. And we have x squared minus 3x minus 4. And we have, I think I did a calculation error there. So remember to use your calculator like I didn't do well. So we have 1.5 squared, and this is why I came to the thing. I'm like, this doesn't feel right because the y-intercept is that 4. So it doesn't make sense that the y-intercept is 4 as well. So that is that negative 6.25. So I did the old on my calculator instead of doing, I did answer minus 3 times 1.25. So I didn't do it on my calculator, but because I used a calculator that shows it, it shows how I messed up. So here is your graph. We're going to finish up by doing those smooth curves, but -1, a 4, and a 1.5, negative 6.25. So make sure you have that one right, negative 6.25, and that's going to change our graph. So our y-intercept is -4, and that's going to go a little bit further down for that negative 6.25. And then your final point is going to be a smooth curve. We'll talk about how to get those points. So be careful with your calculations. Everyone makes mistakes. It's just being able to go, oh no, the y-intercept can't be the same as the vertex. They're not going to be side by side. And that's when you go in and kind of look for your error. So 3 times 1.5. So this was minus 4.5. So that's where we have that error. Okay. So 1 point for your diamond problem, 1 point for your generic rectangle, 1 for your product form, 1 for each root for -1, 1 for each point of the vertex, that's 0.6 and 7, and 1 point for your smooth curve. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points for this guy. Okay, this next one is already in vertex form, so we don't have to use a generic rectangle diamond problem. We know that our vertex is the opposite of the number inside, so the opposite of -1 is 1, and the same exact on the outside. So we know our vertex is 1, -9. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and solve for x to find our roots. So we're going to add 9 to both sides, and we get 9 is equal to x minus 1 squared. Because our x minus 1 squared is isolated, we're going to take the square root of each side. And we have x minus 1 is equal to plus or minus 3. Remember, when we take the square root, we need to both have the plus and minus. We're going to add 1 to both sides. And now this is going to be broken up into 2 problems. We have 3 plus 1, and we have -3 plus 1. 3 plus 1 is 4. That is one of our roots. And -3 plus 1 is -2. That's our second root. So we're going to have a 4 and a -2. Okay. We can also find our y-intercept by making x 0 and solving. So 0 minus 1 is -1. -1 squared is 1. 1 minus 9 is -8. So that's our bonus point there. And that means we can make that same point to the right. That's kind of extra. We didn't have to do that. And then we're going to go ahead and make our smooth parabola curve. Okay. So you get 1, 2 points for the vertex, 3, 4 points for each of the roots, and your 5th point for your picture of your parabola. So that one's worth 5. So between these two, they are worth 13 for number 7. Okay. Our last two are the same, only I didn't have you guys graph them. So our A is 1, our B is 2, our C is -8. We do our diamond problem. 1 times -8 is -8, and our B goes on our bottom. And in order to make that happen, we have 2 times 4 is 8. And it's going to be 4 minus 2. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and put it into our generic rectangle. We have our x squared in the bottom left, our -8 in our upper right, and our 2x is broken up into -2x and 4x. That gives us x times 4, and x times -2. So our product form is x minus 2 times x plus 4. We set each of those equal to 0, and we have a root of 2, and our other root is going to be at -4. Okay, we're now going to go ahead and find that vertex. We're going to add these together, 2 plus -4 divided by 2, and that is -2 divided by 2, and so our vertex has an x-intercept of -1. We're now going to plug this in. -1 squared is 1. -1 times 2 is -2 minus 8. 1 minus 2 is -1, and -1 minus 8 is -9. Okay, so that is our vertex. So 1 point for the diamond, 1 point for the generic rectangle, 1, 2, 1 point for product form, that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 points for part A. Our second one here, same situation. Our A is 1, our B is 6, and our C is -27. 1 times -27 is -27, and our 6 goes on the bottom. So we're looking for two numbers to multiply to 27 and to add to 6. So that's going to be 3 times 9. We want a positive 6, so that's going to be a -3. We have our x squared in the bottom left, our -27 in the upper right, and our 6x gets broken down into -3x and 9x. Okay, we're solving our generic rectangle. X times 9 is 9x, and x times -3. So we have x plus 9 times x minus 3. We set those equal to 0 and solve. So our first intercept is at -9, and our second intercept is at +3. Okay, we're going to add those together and divide by 2. So -9 plus 3 divided by 2 is -6 divided by 2. And so our vertex starts at -3. We're then going to plug that into our original equation. -3 squared is 9. 6 times -3 is -18 minus 27. So 9, let me turn her on. So 9 minus 18 minus 27 is going to be -36. So this one is also worth those same number of points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So between these two, problem number 8 is worth 14 points. Okay. Our very last problem, and notice it goes 8 to 10. Don't worry about that. I took out a word problem. We're writing the equation of a line that goes through 2 points. So the first thing we need to do is find the slope, which is the change in y over the change in x's. So we set up our subtraction problem, and I'm going to start with my bigger y. So I have y minus y, 13 minus 5. I start with the same pair, so 3 minus my other x, which is -1. 13 minus 5 is 8 over 4, so I have a slope, or an m, of 2. Okay, the only other thing that I need to find equation is my y-intercept. So I'm going to go ahead and write the equation of a line, y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to pick one of the pairs. I'm going to pick this one because they're both positive, and I'm going to fill out y, m, and x, and then solve for b. My y is 13, my m is 2, my x is 3 plus b, and then I'm going to solve for b. 13 equals 6 plus b. Subtract 6 from both sides, and b is equal to 7. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and put it in the equation of a line. Y is equal to mx, that's 2x, plus b, plus 7. Okay, so this problem is 1 point for your work for your slope, 1 second point for getting 2 for your slope, third point for work for your y-intercept, your fourth point for your y-intercept, and your fifth point for putting it all together. So this one is out of 5. Okay, let's see how many points are on this page. We have 14 plus 13 plus 14 plus 5. So there are 46 on this page. Go ahead and count up how many you have out of those 46. And then we're going to add that with ours on top, which is another 33. And so our total test is out of 79 points. I'm going to go ahead and have you tally that up and go ahead and put your score in the chat as soon as you have that figured out. Now remember, you get to use all of this work for your test. Okay, that's our quiz, ladies and gentlemen. Now we're going to go ahead and work on these similar problems in our Desmos review.